Life matters because you did live it, he'd once said of any who perish. That I also believe. Chapter 2. I finished a book the other day, In Times of Fading Light. It's by Eugen Ruge, whom I'd never heard of before, but it's a post-Cold War saga set in the former East Germany after its collapse. There's the patriarch, a respected theoretician and writer, the son, loyal to a fault, the grandson who comes to doubt, and the great-grandson who wants to tell the world to get lost. I think Tolstoy may have been wrong when he wrote that all happy families are alike, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Ruge knows better. All families are both alike and not alike in every way. Let me tell you a little of my family drama, beginning with Grandpa Drago. Grandpa came over from Serbia in 1910 and settled in Gary, Indiana, where he worked in the steel mills. I knew Drago pretty well in his later years, and he'd tell me harrowing tales of his life in the plants. Apparently it could be a pretty good show in those clangy, harshly lit circuses, orange embers floating in front of your eyes, wafts of hot air smothering you like a desert Khamsin, and the men laughing ludicrously like brigands on a pirate ship as they did their high-wire act above big ladles of molten steel. "We didn't know anything about lung disease in those days," Grandpa told me once. "During breaks we'd smoke Pall Malls and Lucky Strikes, or just sit on the can for 20 minutes. Grandpa looked the part, a man's man at 6'2", with dark, straight hair he cut short at the sides and combed straight back on top, and he had a toothy smile, all natural teeth, too. I remember his eyebrows best, thick but not bushy, more like tree bark than tumbleweed. Grandpa served in World War I, but wouldn't talk much about that part of his life. We knew he'd volunteered in 1917, then went straight to France where he served in an engineering unit, but they had to fight too. Grandpa said he liked Paris, the usual landmarks and all. Once he talked about the dancers and then winked at Dad, but he wouldn't talk about the battles. When I was a boy, I used to make toy rifles out of wood stripped from orange crates. The thicker pieces would be the stocks, then you'd nail 2 of the narrower side rails at an angle to make the barrels. Grandpa didn't like seeing those things, or me and the other kids lobbing water balloons at each other and making sounds with our mouths like explosions when real grenades would hit their mark. It's not that he said anything, but I could always tell by the look on his face. We stopped those kinds of games after Grandpa grabbed a Roy Rogers cap gun from one of my friends and tossed it over the fence into a neighbor's yard. Grandpa had married an Irish girl from the south side of Chicago, a former governess for an executive on the Illinois Central Railroad. She was real Irish, from some county in Ireland, but I forget which. Unlike in the movies, I don't think immigrants looked back all that fondly to the home country. Neve took care of 3 children, and everyone lived in a large manorial home on South Drexel Street with a carriage house in back, before homes like that were subdivided into apartments. I've seen black and white Kodaks of the home, as Grandpa always called snapshots, and they showed 2 little girls in crinoline dresses and white stockings up to their shins, tightly curled hair on top like Shirley Temple, and the boy was just like Buster Brown, a suit with short pants and a kind of bow tie around his neck, but not fully tied, and highly polished shoes, of course. Grandpa said they'd met at the Indiana dunes when Neve and the 3 kids were swimming there. They'd taken the South Shore train in, and Grandpa had had the day off. I've seen a Kodak of Grandma from that era in her bathing suit, probably navy blue with white trim all around, including a square collar down her back, just like a real Navy uniform, and the shorts came down to her knees, a look that was dated even by the time the photo was taken. You can just make out the Chicago skyline at the far edge of the lake in the background, and the Gary smokestacks off to the left. Neve is shyly toying with her hair as the photographer snaps the picture, and her smile is more of a "you're not really going to make me do this, are you?" kind of look.